Greetings viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're finally going to go over everything wrong with the $300 Outback I picked up about a month ago. So if you've not seen the video, I'll post it here where you can check that out, where I picked up this car. This is a 2007 Outback 2.5i Limited sedan. Yep, Outback sedan. They didn't make very many Outback sedans. It's kind of a hard one to find. A really rare one is one with the 3.0 H6 in it. Those are extremely rare, especially if it's an LL Bean edition. But we got this car, picked it up for $300 from a subscriber down in Florence, South Carolina. And I have gone over it front to back, and we are going to go over every single thing that I found wrong with it, how much it would cost to put it back to basically new condition, and how much money I could potentially make on it restoring it fully, and then how much I could make on it if I picked and chose it a little more carefully with what I decided to repair and what I decided to let go to the next owner. So let's go ahead and get into the breakdown. All right, so again, this is a 2007 Outback 2.5i Limited sedan. Current mileage is 178 to 88. So, front suspension, got under there, jacked it up, took a look underneath. I'm gonna put some clips in of these components as I name them off. So first thing we saw bad was the right front inner tie rod had a little bit of play in it when I wiggled the wheel in and out, grabbing at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position, all tight on the driver's side. So not really bad yet, so we could replace it or we could let it slide. The price of the tie rod is $39.56 new from Subaru. From there, both of our front ball joints have destroyed boots. The ball joints themselves are not loose. They don't have play in them. Check them with a pry bar. But the ball joint boots are torn up and there's lots of junk in there. It's going to start destroying that joint. So might as well go ahead and put 2 new ball joints in them. The ball joints brand new from Subaru are $32.92. And again, both sides are bad. Both sides have bad boots. Not just one side. Front struts and rear struts. We'll talk a little bit more about the rear in a minute, but I was going to go ahead and throw that in. Looks like all 4 struts are the factory ones with 178,000 miles on them. There's visible leakage, evidence that the struts have been leaking. They're past time to be replaced, so we have those on the list. The front struts are $73 a piece, unassembled, so we would have to break down the strut, transfer the spring over. There might be a little bit more cost in there if the spring isolators are bad, if the top hat, the strut mount's bad. Haven't checked that. We'd have to check that when we get it apart. The rear struts come from KYB on Amazon as a assembled, ready-to-go quick strut assembly. They are $103.39 a piece. So glad that KYB is finally starting to offer some quick struts. I wish they would offer more for Subarus. There's not really any good quality quick struts available for Subaru vehicles right now. From there, we've got the control arm bushings, the rear large control arm bushings on the lower control arms on the front of the car. Notorious for breaking down, tearing after 100,000 miles on these control arms. 2005 is when they switched to design. The old bushings were much more stout and gave lots less issue, but these are torn and need to be replaced. They come to a price of $39.60 a piece. Both sides are bad, both sides need to be replaced. From there, the biggest problem with the car, it has blown head gaskets. This being a 2007 did have the single layer graphite coated head gasket that was prone to failure. In this engine series, they have not been replaced yet, so kind of to the higher end of mileage that it made it to 178 on the factory gaskets. These normally blow between 120 to 150,000 miles. That's the normal range, although I've seen them with extremely good care last closer to 200,000 miles. The good thing about Subarus and the head gaskets is you can visually inspect and see which ones are installed on the car, because the head gasket sticks up between the engine block and the cylinder heads. And I can clearly see that is the single layer gasket with the coating, and you can see the coating is peeling off. Of course, it's going to peel off on the outside because it's exposed to the elements, but clearly it's failed on the inside as well because there's massive oil leaks between the head and the block underneath. There is oil and power steering fluid puddling on the front. We'll talk about the power steering pump in a little bit. And there is a blown from compression to coolant issue. We have a new radiator. So at some point it overpressurized the old radiator and blew it out. They put a new radiator in. For whatever reason, didn't check the head gaskets, which were the cause of the first blown radiator. So have to pressure test this radiator and make sure it hasn't had any damage since the issue that caused it to fail the first time was not resolved before it was replaced. So for that, we've got a full engine gasket kit priced. We've got the machine work for the heads to be completely done. This is a worst case scenario, having to replace valve guides, having to do valve seats, all of the above on machining work. Figured about $300 for both cylinder heads for machine work. Figured the engine full seal kit is $270. That is every seal and gasket, O-ring in the entire engine. Unfortunately, this kit does come with the known bad head gaskets. So to upgrade to the MLS multi-layer steel turbo gaskets, which are, I believe it's part number 11044AA642. Don't quote me on that. Those head gaskets are $44 a piece from Subaru, so we'll add those into the cost as well. That will basically cover every engine issue. It has been neglected for some time. The rocker covers are leaking profusely. I'm sure the spark plug well seals are leaking. As I said, the head gaskets are leaking, the oil pan's leaking, most likely the oil pump. At this point, there's so much leakage, there's such a covering, as you'll see in the video, it's hard to say what's actually leaking and what isn't. So while we have the engine out for the head gaskets, we might as well replace every sealing gasket in the engine since it all comes in the engine reseal kit. Moving on from there, the battery hold down is missing. Very cheap, something you want to go ahead and replace. You don't want your battery just sitting there flopping around. You hit a strong enough bump, the battery could contact the underside of the hood, exposed bare metal, short the battery, no bueno. So the hold down is $10.90 from Subaru. The two J hooks that hold the hold down in place are $1.53 a piece, and the two nuts for the J hooks are about 15 cents a piece. From there, we'll talk about the power steering pump mentioned a minute ago. It is leaking quite profusely. Unfortunately, on this model, this style power steering pump, if you've seen videos in the past, I have bought the $35 power steering reseal kit from Subaru, but they don't offer one for this power steering pump. But this power steering pump does share quite a few seals with the older pumps. So I could probably jerry-rig that $35 seal kit to seal the issue here, which I'm pretty sure is the main body, between the back plate and the body of the pump. I believe that's what's leaking, and I'm pretty sure that seal is available in all the kits, is pretty much the same all the way across the board. If that's not available, a new power steering pump from Subaru is $369. So we're gonna figure the $35 rebuild kit and not the full pump at this time. While we're going ahead and resealing the entire engine, we're gonna go ahead and put 4 new spark plugs and a full set of spark plug wires on the engine. $9.46 a piece for the spark plugs, which are NGKs, and $60 for the spark plug wire set. We'll talk about the dashboard. So this model of Legacy Outback 2005 to 2009, there was a recall recently on sticky dashboards. The actual covering of the dashboard, when exposed to UV light and time, would get sometimes, not all of them, but most of them, got this sticky residue where you would touch the dash and it was sticky and you couldn't wipe it off. Subaru did a very short run recall, only about 12 to 14 month window to have these replaced. And unfortunately that window has closed. I called Subaru of America and I cannot get a dashboard under the recall for this car because they closed out that window of opportunity. So if I wanted to put a brand new dashboard in it, it would be $476.49. Again, that's cosmetic. That's not gonna affect this vehicle's performance. So that's on the back burner, but I wanted to include that because it is an issue with the car. Moving to the rear, most of the rear suspension was in pretty decent shape, aside for those rear struts that were leaking pretty badly. Rear sway bar end links, they were not great. They were already starting to have issues. So we're gonna replace those, $27.68 a piece, one on each side. The rear differential bushings are basically completely shot. Those are about $10 a piece. Timing belt kit, water pump. Timing belt water pump kit. While we're gonna do this whole reseal and basically completely renew this engine, it'd be foolish not to replace the timing belt water pump and all components. So it will take an Ison TKF 006 kit that is $230.38 on Amazon. And while we're doing that, we're gonna go ahead and put a brand new Subaru Genuine thermostat in it. That is $24. I've allotted about $200 for the various fluids and filters. Brake fluid needs to be replaced. Oil and filter, of course, with the teardown of the engine. ATF filter, front and rear differential fluid, gear oil. And yeah, that's it basically for the fluids. So I figure about $200 should cover most of that, if not all of it. And last but not least, we need a set of tires on this Outback. This Outback has not one, not two, but all four tires are different brands and different models, which is an absolute no-no on any Subaru. All four tires need to be a matching set with the exact same tread depth. I think the variance that Subaru allows is 2 or 3 30-seconds total between all four tires. If you get different tires, if you get different wear, like say replace 2 tires brand new and you have 2 far older worn tires, that is not good for the Subaru all-wheel drive system and cause all kinds of vibration in the drivetrain, and it's just not a good thing. So all 4 tires need to be replaced with a brand new matching set. Several of them are decent, but there is 1 or 2 that's nearly bald, and they are quite old according to the DOT number, and having some dry rot cracks in them. So not safe, do not need to run these, especially after we put all the money into the suspension. So the most decent economy price tire I could find from Discount Tire would run me about $410 for all 4 mounted and balanced, ready to go. Did not mention this earlier, I don't think, but after we get the new tires and all of the suspension components addressed, we're gonna need a full 4-wheel alignment, and that will run about $50 from a buddy of mine in town. Take it to his shop and get the alignment done. So as far as I am looking, I skipped around a little bit. I'm pretty sure I covered every single thing I needed to cover on this list, which when tallying that up, again, excluding the full price of a power steering pump, excluding the center console lid, and excluding that dashboard, we get a grand total of $2,397.68 in parts to basically make this car mechanically brand new and 100% sound, as far as I can tell right now. Just saying that because I haven't been able to drive it, I haven't titled it, haven't tagged it. So this is going off of just a visual inspection and driving it around the farm here. So with the price of $300 purchasing this car, that brings us to a grand total of $2,697.68 invested in the vehicle. The NADA value for this car right now on clean retail is $5,875. Trade-in value is about $3,800. Gauging by the demand for Subarus, this would technically be lower mileage. It has very minimal rust on it. It has some rust more than I'm used to seeing in the South, but it's not the typical northern rust. I could sell this in a market in the mountains of North Carolina, which sometimes I do with my clean southern Subarus, because they will pay a premium for the older Subarus, especially ones that aren't rotted out. We'll say I could get about $3,800 for this car. That's what we're gonna say I'm gonna finally sell this car for. Putting that $2,697.68 into it, that would mean me walking away making $1,102.32. We're not gonna figure my labor in because it's my time. I use that to teach you, make the videos, and I enjoy working on Subaru. So I'm not counting my own labor. I have no idea what it would be. So guys, if you ask me in the comments, my labor is normally $100 an hour, you can figure it out. This probably would rival the cost of the parts if I figured my labor into this. Again, I don't quite understand why some of you want to know what the labor cost would be on the breakdown on these cars, because this is this scenario. It's not your scenario. It's not any other car out there. At that point, it'd just be playing devil's advocate. So that's why I never include labor on my personal vehicles that I'm flipping or fixing. So, $1,102 worth of profit on fixing the car. Now that said, there are several items on here that we could neglect. Let's not use the word neglect. Several items on here we could switch out and not worry with replacing. You know, we could replace tires, we could leave the struts, we could do the ball joints. There's several $100 of things we could leave off that would not constitute a danger to the new owner in owning it, but would be a repair cost for them within, you know, 6 months of ownership of this car, and would increase our profit margin. What I'm going to do with this car, I'm not exactly sure yet. I know I'm going to repair it, but I don't know if I'm going to repair it to sell or if I'm going to repair it to keep. My mother was interested in it, but she's very picky, as we talked about on the Crosstrek video that initially was going to be for her, and it didn't work out. I doubt she's going to take this car, knowing her, because she wants white and this is champagne. But, you know, if she doesn't want it, I can sell it and make my money back. So that basically does it for the video, for the rundown on it. There will be more videos on this in the future, especially on the repair when we get to that point. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.